So yeah, from employed to self-employed. We've both been self-employed now for a little bit of time, but I've
Hmm.
been self-employed, I would say less than you, right? I've
Yeah.
been officially self-employed since January of this year. When was your like first self-employment? I know you've jumped back and forth in between like
Yes.
employment and self-employment, but well, when was your first? But like
Oh,
let's say after 18 years old.
after
Yeah.
after 18. I think it was, God, the years are going to get me. 2019.
Okay.
November of 2019, maybe 2018. I think it was 2018.
Okay, but about 6 years ago was your first self-employment. What was that? The
Yeah,
first one?
so that was Lupe Watches.
Okay.
So that was a company that I had bought
Yeah.
when I had left Chipotle. It was a small e-commerce store, and I bought it, and then that was my first, I guess, like 3 month stint into self-employment.
Got you. And then you went to True Green after that, correct?
Yes,
Which
as a
is
sales rep.
technically self-employment in a way. I mean,
Yeah,
it's under
kind
a
of.
company, but you create your own income in a sense, as
Kind
you
of.
have to
It
go
did
on.
have a good base, but yeah, the commission part, very similar to self-employment. Like if
Yeah.
you aren't going out and getting deals, you really don't make much money.
I feel like really any commission job, you should treat as self-employment in
Yeah,
general. Like
almost.
promote
Like
yourself,
you,
promote. Yeah.
yeah, like you are running that business function almost.
Hmm.
You're responsible for going and getting the sales.
Yeah.
You just don't have the responsibility of creating the product or
Yeah.
service.
Bookkeeping and
Yeah.
marketing and all of that stuff. Cool. Well, my first experience, I guess technically was like my first little lawn care business. I just don't count
When was
that.
that?
That was 2019.
Mm.
Wow, right around the same
Hey,
time.
look
Yeah.
at that. The
Yeah,
parallels.
2019. Started that little business, did that, but I just don't call it self-employment because I didn't treat it as like its own thing. Like it
Just a
wasn't
side hustle.
exactly. It
Yeah.
was a side. I think side hustles and self-employment are totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
Hmm.
They're 100% different. Like employment, you're still employed, so you don't have that self-employment mindset.
Yeah.
Like my first real transition into self-employment was leaving the fire department, and then those couple different jobs, and then going into the handyman business.
Hmm.
Like the handyman business was the first real self-employment, still is my self-employment to this day. And I left the fire department and I went and did car sales for a very brief time, and then I did marketing for a brief time for about a year or so. But to me, I see it going from like the fire department to the handyman. That to me is like
That was the big jump.
the biggest leap,
Yeah.
right? Like, yes, I went from the fire department and kind of went into car sales and went into marketing, but really my mindset was like, I'm no longer a firefighter because after I left the marketing job, I was basically like, I'm done with firefighting 100%.
Hmm.
Like, I know I'm not going back. Because when
Yeah.
I left the fire department the first time, or the only time, um, there was still something in the back of my head that was like, I can go back to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
I could go back and do that again. But after I did car sales and after I did marketing, I was like, I'm not gonna go back to that. I'm gonna
Hmm.
do my own thing. And so for me, that's when that switch kicked in of like
What made you make that decision of, okay, I'm not going back to be a firefighter?
a collective, just all of my experiences over all of the different things I had done, right? So like having the marketing, having the sales, having the kind of construction background from flipping the homes, all of those things together was like, I feel like I'm really good on my own. Like I feel like for me, I'm safe. I don't have to have a safe job to make Chance safe. Like
Mm.
I can make my own living. I can make my own self-worth, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really the biggest key is like you have to really be okay with yourself 100% to be self-employed, right? Like
Yeah.
because it's all riding on you.
Yeah.
And in the fire department, I don't feel like I had that mindset yet. And
Hmm.
so when I went and tried those other couple things and I started building my own, I would say self-worth, my own independence, it was kind of like, okay, I think I can just go do my own thing. I feel like when I left the fire department, if I would have had the knowledge of the sales and marketing, like right then and there, I would have gone straight from that into the handyman business. But specifically speaking, leaving from the marketing business and going to me starting my handyman business was kind of the biggest point of, okay, you're no longer going to get a check from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create your own income.
Yep.
You have to create your own schedule. You have to wake up in the morning. Your boss isn't going to call and say, hey, are you up? You know, and those are the hardest things in self-employment for that first little bit, right? Is like
Yep.
creating your own schedule, building your own company, building your own income, doing all of that is obviously the hardest.
Yep.
But what's funny is like you realize that isn't even anything. Like that's just the beginning. Then you have to go through sales cycles, and then you have to go through taxes, and then you have to go through hiring people. Like then it honestly doesn't get easier. I mean,
no.
It definitely doesn't get easy. You just get more comfortable with the uncomfortable things.
Yes.
Honestly, is all it is. Like if anything, it gets harder.
Much harder.
It gets harder. It doesn't get easier, but you're so used to it at that point that it's like it's just another day.
Yeah.
It's
so used to the constant change and relying on yourself, and that it puts you in a different state of mind.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like what you were saying, you didn't go into self-employment after the firefighter because you still weren't fully comfortable with jumping in and being your own boss and confident that you can take things to the next level. But there's something that when you're self-employed and you're growing a company and you're hiring people, you're providing a service, you are going through all these challenges.
Yeah.
You learned very quickly that there's nobody above me that I can just throw this problem to if I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And so you learn to, at least in my case, love that situation where you're just constantly having problems and you're like, okay, I can't just throw this to somebody, so I'm going to solve it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let it get to me. I just know I have to take action and I'm going to do this versus, at a job, whether we like to admit it or not, there's always that safety net of not only income,
comfort,
but the comfort. Hey, if I can't solve this problem, if I don't know how we're going to hit budget, well, that's my director's problem.
Yeah.
And then they
Whatever.
send it up to the owners and
issue.
the investors and, right. But when it's your thing, there's nobody you can throw that baton up to. It's you.
Yeah. And the thing that I can say makes self-employment easier is, more partners, things like that. So it doesn't all rely on you.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's still your thing. Like no matter the stake in the company, if you only own 10% of the company, it's still your thing.
Yeah.
You just have more people to help you with it, right? And that's better. But you're still, if you're self-employment, that means you're the top dog. That means you're up there making all of the decisions. That you can't 100% rely on other people. You can have other people help you, which is what we love about BizWhip, right? We get to help other companies. But at the end of the day, if they're not committed to being self-employed and committing to growing their business, we can't do shit for you, honestly. I mean, we cannot help you if you don't want to grow yourself. And for me, that was when you came into the picture of, Smart Fix Handyman. I can honestly say, looking back, it definitely made things easier, but at the same time, it made things harder because when you came in, we grew when we brought on more jobs and I had to build more of a professional look for the company. And I had to start holding myself in a different manner. Like it wasn't just me going out and, knocking on people's doors and getting things. It was, 10, 15 Google reviews that are saying, hey, you're a reliable company. You have a website that shows that you're a reliable company. So I have to back that now, right?
Yep.
It makes it easier in the aspect of I don't have to worry about work coming in all the time. Like we have reliable lead flow coming in, but it still doesn't like take away all of the fear of self-employment. Like you can't totally get rid of that. Like that, I feel like is always going to be there. You just have to get comfortable with it. And for most people, that's why they don't make the leap. I feel like we're so used to I mean, I was watching a TikTok the other day actually, and it was about how schools almost like program us
Yeah.
into becoming an employee. Like
Mm-hmm.
school doesn't teach you how to build a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
At
Yeah.
all. It teaches you that like when you need to when you need to use the restroom, raise your hand, ask for permission, go out, and like it literally starts putting you in the mindset of there's someone going to be above me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And not saying don't go to school. It's just that
Stay in school, kids.
yeah, just have the mindset that you can be at the top. You can
Yeah.
make your own decisions. And for so many, that's a fear for people because we're taught from a very young age. Like that's not the way most people do it. Most
Yeah.
people work for the bigger guy.
How did you overcome that? So you're totally right.
Yeah,
Throughout school, there's always somebody that is leading us, telling us when school starts, when we change classes,
yeah,
what subject to learn. And there's always somebody there if we can't solve a problem or we
right.
have trouble with our grades,
Yeah,
then we go to somebody.
yeah,
Self-employment, own your own business, it's
hmm,
totally different.
yeah.
How did you make that mental jump to be able to think of yourself not as somebody who would constantly be under somebody else, but somebody who could solve those novel problems by themselves and rely on themselves versus relying on somebody constantly in front of them?
I think making that jump was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that very, very dramatically too, as in the fact of it genuinely was. Like so many people talk about how it's amazing to have your own business and the greatest thing is to be self-employed.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, for months, I would literally lay in bed and like there were points where I just broke down and cried because I was like,
Yeah.
what if I don't have work next week?
Yep.
What if I make no money next month and we
Mm-hmm.
can't afford our home?
Yeah.
Like things like that. Luckily, at the time, Haley had a really good job, still does. And so it wasn't that difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, still, it was like, we might not get by if I don't bring it in. And so the mentality shift that I had to make was genuinely just being totally okay with, in my mind, for me personally, with everyone being upset with me and
Mm-hmm.
nobody being proud of me. Because
Yeah.
to me, as long as I knew I was proud of myself and I wasn't looking for other people to be proud of me, I could make my own stuff work.
Yeah.
Whereas I did the firefighting, I think for longer than I wanted to because I wanted to make my dad proud,
Mm.
and I did these other things because I wanted to make my friends proud of me.
Yeah.
And that switch to self-employment is like, I don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks about me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe like how I made that shift. It was just, it kind of just clicked. Like
Mm.
it was one day I was like, stop moping around the house and just get up and take charge.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
I feel like that is one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of people
Hmm.
is and honestly also one of the the misconceptions about being self-employed.
Hmm.
Like I feel like especially in today's generation we have enamored entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
business owners. We've put them in the limelight, like these are the people of the current generation.
Hmm.
However, looking at them also, we don't realize that, especially at the beginning, there is a lot of pushback from friends, family,
Yeah.
loved ones, and even yourself, because you're jumping out on a limb. You're not doing something that is safe or secure. You could lose everything. And also, there's part of us all, I feel like, that whenever we see somebody doing something that we wish we could do by ourselves, we kind of get jealous.
It's almost like
And
a
then we
little
look down.
resentment.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
resent them. And for me personally, I experienced that quite a lot. I had friends who,
Yeah.
whenever I really got into business and started to be successful, that they would like stay friends with me, but then they would constantly say stuff or like, oh, why are you working so hard, or stop doing this, like you can always go back to college, like, oh, what about
Yeah.
tech, like software engineers make so much money.
Yeah.
And it is really hard stepping out into self-employment by yourself, and the people around you are not always that supportive.
Yeah.
Until you hit it big, then you'll have supportive people, but even then you'll still have the haters, the doubters, who will try and pull you down because they have that resentment towards you because you were able to do something that they weren't confident enough in themselves to take that step out and do.
Yeah. I think I'm literally just now realizing what the switch was, and it was more specifically at BBM. Yourself, and Robert were really big influences to me.
Really?
Neither one of y'all are 50, 60, 70 years old owning a company. Y'all are relatively young.
Yeah.
And it was a solid company. I mean, it really, really was. And so I feel like the more and more I talked with you, I talked with Robert some, but I talked with you more on the operations side of things. And I feel like realizing like, hey, if this dude my age can do it, why can't I go do it?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was the switch, because I've never had friends in my life that went out and did that stuff. Like even with my dad, like he went out, he made his own company, but he still had his safety net.
Yeah.
And I say all the time, and I've literally said it to my dad's face, I'm like, I feel like if maybe you would have left the fire department, it could have grown to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Right? Because you would be, all of your attention would be focused on it.
Yep.
Also, my dad's made an incredible life for himself, his family, and everything. So I honestly don't think he should have changed a thing. But there is that kind of thought of like, what if he would have, made that little leap, right? And I really think that's when it kicked in, was when I started talking with you more, and was like, this dude owns a part of a freaking company, right? He's the top dog at this marketing firm. Why can't I go be a top dog?
Yeah.
And the cool thing was it didn't take me a lot of influence to like kick that in. I just needed one or two people to show me that it's possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm so passionate about BizWhip, and why you're so passionate about it, is because it's like all you need is a little bit of motivation. I feel like it's sometimes. Yeah. Like we just had that conversation with the handy woman last week, and it was like, I feel like all she needs is a little edge, like a little push, right, to get her over that hard spot. Here, we're going to give you a little bit help, and maybe you're not comfortable with sales, maybe you're not comfortable with the marketing side, whatever it is, we're here. We'll have a meeting every single week, like we're here to help.
Yep.
And that is not beneficial in the way of, oh, they're there to help. It's beneficial in the way of, well, if they've done it, I should be able to do it too. Yeah. And them being your partner just makes it that much easier, right?
Yeah.
But for me, it was specifically when, and I think I've said it 4 times now, so I'll only use one of them when I edit it. But it was specifically when talking with you and Robert, and realizing I should be able to do this myself. If they can do it themselves, why can't I? And that's when I kind of kicked it into high gear and was like, let's go do this.
That's awesome, because I feel like that's something so common with a lot of people. What was it? I think it was the 1950s or early 1900s. There was a common belief that nobody could run faster than a 4-minute mile. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, 100%.
And now we have dozens of people who have ran and consistently run a sub 4-minute mile.
My dad was one of them.
Did he really?
3:56.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm still in the 6 minutes, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Right? But it's not like people randomly just like popped up and started to do it.
Yeah.
It was one person. One person ran a sub 4-minute mile, and then another person did it, and then another person did it, and then now like your dad has done it too.
Yeah.
So many people have done it.
Yeah.
And, sports psychologists say that really it wasn't a body limiting factor.
No.
We could have ran a sub 4-minute mile in the early 1900s and the 1800s. Not to say nobody did. Yeah. It just wasn't recorded. But then once we saw somebody else achieve it, we're like, oh, shoot, this is possible.
Yeah.
And with business, that's so common.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people look up to business owners and they think to themselves like, I don't know how they do it. I could never do this. It's impossible to run a company at, in my mid 20s. I have to be at least 50 years old and
Yeah.
have an MBA and
Yeah.
have $1 billion in
No,
the
you
bank
don't.
account before I can start up something. But no, you don't.
Yeah.
There are dozens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands probably of young business owners or business owners without any business experience who have started something up and they've made it work.
Yeah.
It might have been a more treacherous route because they had some learning to do, but they were able to do it. There's not a huge difference between a regular person and a business owner.
There really isn't. There's two different mindsets,
Yes.
ultimately. You've got and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be an employee the rest of your life and having
Nothing wrong at all.
a safety net. Nothing by any means. We wouldn't have businesses if there weren't those people.
Mhm.
It's literally just two different mindsets. So like,
Yes.
if you have the mindset that, gosh, your boss is amazing and I can never do what he does, like I'm just so thankful for him, like then maybe that's your role. Like you're an awesome employee, you're great at what you do. But if every time you look at your boss and you're like, God, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Like maybe you should explore that. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people don't because it's not normalized.
Uh-huh.
It's not normalized. And so many things today, way outside of business too, is when we normalize things as a collective society in general, is like it's all of a sudden it's okay. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter what the topic was. Like the second we all start normalizing something, it's like the 4-minute mile.
Yep.
The second people started doing it, it's really not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like our generation is starting to normalize that entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And it's almost like some people look at it in a downfall of like nobody wants to work anymore for their bosses or whatever. And like in some cases, yes, there's lazy people, but there's lazy people in every generation.
Oh yeah.
But in ours specifically, it's the fact that we have so many tools to our advantage now.
We do.
That
the internet has just exploded the opportunity landscape.
Why can't you create your own business? Like you literally have, especially with AI coming out and all of that, like you have so many tools to your advantage.
Yeah.
So many different businesses out there that are willing to help you. And so like, yeah, I feel like if you've had that thought of, hey, maybe I should go do my own thing, just go do it.
Yeah. One thing that I found particularly helpful is when determining, because you're absolutely right, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. For certain people, like that is the best option for them. Like that is what makes them happiest. And by all means, they should focus on that. Vice versa, there's some people who should go and try to start their own thing.
Yeah.
And what was really helpful for me was, I forget who said it, but the vision of your life is kind of like your North Star. So they were talking about, I don't know, I think it was like Elon Musk. And it was, hey, if you want to help expand space exploration and help get us to a multi-planetary species, then you can either A, start up your own space company, or B, you can go work for a company with an amazing vision that aligns with yours, and you can make an impact there.
Yeah.
So it's not so much like you have to start your own company to fulfill your vision.
Yeah.
But if there's not a company that aligns with your vision in your geographic area or, wherever you want to be, then that's when you should start looking to take a step and to create that vision for you. Because if we're not doing what we believe that our purpose on this earth is to do, whatever space exploration or helping people fix up their homes, and a lot of people have struggles with that, myself included. I know how to use a hammer and a screwdriver, and that's about it. Don't ask me to mount my TV. And so, like, your vision is helping people do those things in their home and helping to simplify their life.
Yeah.
So finding that vision, what is your vision, mission, purpose in life? And then just seeing, is there anybody I can partner with locally or, where I am to fulfill that vision? If not, what would it look like to start my own thing and to try to do this myself?
Yeah. And if you want to do it yourself, then the one thing that I've got to say, and we'll end on, is the fact that, like, if you want to do it yourself, there's tons of people out there that can help you.
Yeah.
You don't have to rely on your family. You don't have to
Hmm.
rely on your friends. I didn't by any means. I think I had Haley and you,
Yeah.
and that's all it took.
Hmm.
And now the Smart Fix is where it's at today, and now you and I are creating the Biz Whip, and it's been a hell of a ride.